Welcome to my virtual tour of Jerusalem. Today we're going to take a walk down the Via Dolorosa, which is the walk of Christ. We can go back in time and see where Christ was as he carried the cross to save our sins.
We begin our tour at the Lion's Gate, so named for the stone reliefs on the outer facade, representing the lions in the coat of arms of the Mamluk Sultan Baybars, who built the lower part of the gate in the 13th century. The upper part of the gate dates to the rebuilding of the city walls by the Ottoman Turkish Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent in the 16th century. It is the only gate open to the east. According to the legend, Baybars dreamed he saw lions about to devour him as punishment for leaving the holy city of Jerusalem unprotected, and immediately hastened to repair its defenses. This gate has different names. The Arabs called it Bab al-Maryam because of the close proximity to where the Virgin Mary was buried. Christians call it St. Stephen's Gate, in memory of the first Christian martyr who was stoned to death close by. Christian processions pass through here on Palm Sunday, the first day of the Holy Week before Easter, in the footsteps of Jesus, who came from the Galilee and entered Jerusalem by way of the Mount of Olives. This gate has undergone changes throughout its history. One of the most striking is the change from an elbow gate, which was designed to stall invaders, to the straight gate of today, enabling access for vehicles. Outside and left and right of the gate, we see a Muslim cemetery stretching almost the entire length of the eastern wall of the Old City, built here because of the nearness to the holy mosques. Again, looking at the gate itself, we see other ornamentation, flowers and small arches placed between the firing slits. For additional defense, boiling oil to stop invaders could be poured through the holes in the floor of the small balcony. We can now safely enter. First station. Jesus is condemned to death at the Praetorium. We are standing next to the steps leading to the first station of the Via Dolorosa, the Alhambra School for Boys. Note the Roman numeral 1 on the metal circle above the school sign. 9 of the 14 stations along the route are marked in this way. The school is not open to visitors, so we will listen to the explanation here.
Today we are allowed to go into the school area, to the courtyard, which would have been the area where Jesus was flogged. This would have been the location of Pontius Pilate.
The Via Dolorosa, the Way of Sorrow in Latin, better known in English as the Way of the Cross, is in particular venerated by the Catholic Church. It is believed to be the last road taken by Jesus bearing his cross from the Praetorium, where he was tried and condemned, to the place of his crucifixion. Following the Roman custom of the times, those who were condemned to death were obliged to walk through the city with their name and details of their conviction displayed. This route is based on a devotional walk organized by the Franciscans in the 14th century. Every year, thousands of pilgrims religiously follow Jesus' final route, stopping to pray at each station along the way. The first station marks the site of the Antonia Fortress, which served as one of the main headquarters for the Roman garrison in the city. Here Jesus was sentenced to death by the Roman procurator Pontius Pilate, and began carrying the cross to Golgotha, or Calvary, where he was crucified and buried. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre was later built over this site. The Crusaders built a small chapel on the ruins of Antonia Fortress, but it was destroyed by Saladin in 1187. The second station marks the site where, according to tradition, the Roman soldiers mockingly dressed Jesus in royal robes, crowned him with thorns, whipped him, and gave him the cross. At the gate, you can distinguish the upper arch with carved thorns, symbolizing the crown of thorns. This church, designed by Italian architect Antonio Barluzzi, was built in the 1930s on the remains of a Crusader church and preserved the medieval architectural style. Barluzzi built many churches in the Holy Land, among them the Church of All Nations in Gethsemane and the church on Mount Tabor. The dim light inside the church evokes a feeling of doom. The stained glass windows inside the church dramatically portray the scourging of Jesus at the hands of the Roman soldiers. Over the road, now supporting a modern room, is called Ecce Homo. This is Latin for, "Here is the man." the words with which the Roman governor Pontius Pilate presented Jesus to the crowds before condemning him to death. The arch was once thought to be the entrance to the Antonia fortress, and possibly the place where that incident took place, hence the name by which it became known. Scholars today identify the Ecce Homo arch as a triumphal arch of the Roman Emperor Hadrian, built around 135 CE, a full century after the death of Jesus. What is seen over the street is the central arch of three. Its continuation and the complete northern arch can be seen in the chapel of the adjacent convent of the Sisters of Zion. The southern arch has not survived. The convent was established in 1868. During construction, impressive remains of an ancient pavement with intriguing street games etched into it were uncovered. Called lithostratos in Greek, the pavement was mistakenly identified with the Antonia fortress, but it now seems to be a Roman courtyard of the 2nd century CE. Inside the convent you can visit the church, the ancient pavement, and an enormous water cistern, probably dating back to the Hasmonean period of the early 1st century BCE. There is a small entrance fee to the convent. We continue walking down the street to the intersection of the Via Dolorosa and Haggai Street, also called El-Wad Street. Third and fourth stations. Stand at the black gate between two adjacent pillars and look at the stone relief above the small chapel. This is the third station on the Way of the Cross. Here, according to tradition, Jesus, bearing the cross, fell for the first time. The chapel, a part of the nearby Armenian Catholic Church, was built in the 19th century and renovated in 1947 by Polish soldiers who had fought alongside the Allies in World War II. Enter the chapel and have a look at the statues and paintings depicting Jesus' agony. The fourth station, commemorating Jesus meeting his mother, also belongs to the Armenian Catholic Church. Excavations brought to light a section of a mosaic floor, perhaps of a Byzantine church, depicting a pair of sandals. Some believe it was intended to represent the spot where the suffering Mary stood. Another part of the church was built over the ruins of a Mamluk period public bath, known as Hammam es-Sultan. The chapel at the fourth station, about 30 meters beyond the third, is usually closed. However, if the Armenian Catholic Church next to the third station is open, you can ask the guard to lead you to the crypt where the mosaic was found. The fifth station, Simon the Cyrenian helps Jesus to carry the cross. This small Franciscan chapel, built in 1895, marks the event of Simon of Cyrene, a pilgrim to Jerusalem who happened to be standing by, devotedly helping Jesus when he can no longer bear the burden. Written in Latin on the gate is, Simon of Cyrene helps to bear the cross. We read in the New Testament in the Gospel of Luke, "A certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way in from the country, and they forced him to carry the cross." Christian tradition tells us nothing more about Simon, but his name suggests that he was a Jew and possibly on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. The fifth station is marked also by the engraved stone in the wall to the right of the chapel. Tradition relates that Jesus leaned against this stone on his way to Calvary, and therefore pilgrims, in a gesture of identification with Jesus, touch the stone. The Franciscans built the chapel in 1889 and renovated it in 1982. We continue up the Via Dolorosa to the sixth station, marked by the Roman numeral 6 on a wooden door on the left side of the street. Sixth station, Veronica wipes Jesus' face. The sixth station is a small chapel commemorating the spot where a woman came out of the crowd to wipe the face of Jesus. His image was left imprinted on the cloth. Although the event is not mentioned in the New Testament, the woman's name has come down to us as Veronica, derived apparently from a combination of the Latin vera, meaning true, and the Greek eikon, meaning image. Hence, Vera icon becomes Veronica. Many miracles have been ascribed to Veronica's veil, which has been kept as a relic in St. Peter's in Rome since the 8th century. A later tradition states that Veronica was able to heal the Roman Emperor Tiberius of a grievous sickness with her napkin, and that he, thus convinced of the divinity of Christ, at once sent Pilate into exile. Now proceed to the gate of the seventh station, located at the next intersection. It is easily recognizable by the round metal plate with the Roman numeral 7. Seventh station. Jesus falls the second time. We are standing at the entrance to a Franciscan chapel built in 1875. This is a traditional station which is not reflected in the Gospel account. Jesus fell here for the second time, possibly due to the steep climb toward Calvary. Within the chapel is a tall stone column which lines up with the well-known colonnaded Cardo, the main north-south street of 6th century Jerusalem, which was discovered in the Jewish quarter of today. Inside the chapel is a relief showing Jesus kneeling with the cross on his back. According to tradition, Jesus left the city through the so-called Judgment Gate, where the Romans reaffirmed the death sentences. A monumental gate of the period is today enshrined within the nearby Russian church of St. Alexander Nevsky. As you face the seventh station, step to the left and immediately right. Just 20 meters or so up a narrow street is the 8th station, marked by an inscribed stone in the wall on your left. 8th station. Jesus meets the women of Jerusalem. A carved stone embedded in the wall of the Greek monastery of St. Haralambos marks the 8th station. On the stone is a Latin cross and the Greek abbreviations IC, XC, and NIKA for Jesus Christ Victor. The site of the 8th station has been marked at this spot since the middle of the 19th century, when the Franciscans moved the commemoration site to beyond the Judgment Gate. The Gospel of Luke relates that a crowd, including weeping women, followed Jesus to the crucifixion site. He turned to them and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children." From here, go back to the 7th station and turn right. Proceed along the market street, called Suk HaMazayet, until you see a wide staircase on the right that ascends parallel to the street itself. Stay alert because the steps are easy to miss. Take the steps and continue along the alley at the top to the Coptic monastery at the very end. Ninth station. Jesus falls the third time. The 9th station brings us closer to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, distinguished by the large gold cross on its dome. We are at the entrance to the Coptic Patriarchate, an Eastern church based in Egypt. Jesus arrived here a short distance from Calvary or Golgotha, exhausted and mocked by the Roman soldiers. Here tradition indicates he fell for the third time. From here we enter the courtyard of the Ethiopian church, located on the roof of a different chapel of St. Helena, which is part of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. We are in the courtyard of the Ethiopian church. The Ethiopian monks live in the small cells with the windows at the side of the courtyard. The neglected look of the place is witness to the difficult times in which the Ethiopian church has found itself. The Marxist takeover in Ethiopia resulted in the confiscation of church property and the impoverishment of the church. The connection between the Ethiopians and Jerusalem is an ancient one. According to Ethiopian tradition, their monarchy has its roots in the visit of the Queen of Sheba to King Solomon in the 10th century BCE to test his wisdom with hard questions, as the Bible relates. More transpired between them apparently, though the Bible is silent about it, and they produced a son named Menelik, who founded the Ethiopian royal house. Our next stop is the courtyard of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. 10th station, stripping of the garments. Let us stand at the edge of the courtyard of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, from where we can see the entire facade of the church. The Crusader building across from us is the holiest place in the world for most Christians, especially those of the Catholic and Eastern churches. A small stairway outside the church leads to Station 10, the chapel of the stripping of the garments. According to tradition, here the Roman soldiers took the cross from Jesus' back, removed most of his clothes, and cast lots to divide them out. Look at the main entrance of the church with its typical Crusader decorative arches. The sealed gate closed perhaps because of Saladin's regulations. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, one of Jerusalem's oldest churches, has undergone many changes. Queen Helena, the mother of the Roman Emperor Constantine, who instituted Christianity as the imperial religion, established the church in 335 CE while on a visit to Jerusalem. She identified this spot as the place where Jesus had been crucified and buried, and named the church Anastasis, Resurrection. Through the years, the name was changed to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. In the Byzantine period, an enormous church compound was erected, which became the Christian religious center of Jerusalem for hundreds of years. The church was seriously damaged in the Persian conquest of 614, and almost totally destroyed in 1009 on order of the Fatimid ruler Al-Hakim bin Amr Allah. This was one of the main historical events that sparked the First Crusade. After the Crusaders conquered Jerusalem in 1099, the church was rebuilt and has maintained its medieval dimensions ever since. The church is divided among the 6 oldest Christian sects: Roman Catholic or Latins, Armenian Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, Egyptian Coptic, Ethiopian, and Syrian Orthodox. Each denomination has its own space, right down to lines drawn down the middle of floors and pillars, and its own schedule of rites of procession and prayer in other areas of the church. Following constant disagreement between the sects, the keys to the church were handed to the Arab family of Nusayba for safekeeping. To this day, they open the church doors every morning in a modest ceremony. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre is sacred to most of the older Christian denominations. Many Protestants identify Skull Hill and the garden tomb outside the old city walls as the site of the crucifixion and burial of Jesus. The next and last 4 stations of the cross are located inside the church. Station 11. Jesus is nailed to the cross. Just inside the main entrance of the church, on the right, a flight of stairs climbs steeply to the top of a small hill. This is identified as the place of the skull, where Jesus was crucified. The name Golgotha is the Greek rendering of the Aramaic or Hebrew for skull. The name Calvary comes from the Latin equivalent. The name was probably given due to the traditional creed that the hill looked like a skull. The chapel on the right belongs to the Roman Catholic Church, or the Latins as they are known in this part of the world. At the front of the chapel is Station 11, where Jesus was nailed to the cross. The wall mosaic behind the altar tells the story. His mother Mary lies by his side, while Mary Magdalene, one of his devoted followers, stands alongside. Below the mosaic is a pure silver altar donated in 1588 by the Medici family of Florence. The chapel, as it is today, was restored in 1937. The portrait of Jesus in the center of the ceiling is the only remaining mosaic from the Crusader period. The adjacent chapel is the 12th station, the site of the crucifixion, which belongs to the Greek Orthodox. 12th station, the crucifixion of Jesus. We are in the Greek Orthodox chapel, adjacent to the Catholic 11th station. This is the 12th station where Jesus died on the cross. The place where the cross stood is indicated by the hole in the silver disc under the altar. The rock of Golgotha can be seen through a window on the floor. Visitors can stoop down and reach their hand into the small hole to touch the holy stone. A fissure in the rock is attributed to the earthquake that, according to tradition, occurred immediately after Jesus' death. The typically Eastern ornamentation includes hanging lamps and gilded or silver icons. Note that in the Eastern Orthodox tradition, only flat images or bas-relief images are used. The image of Jesus stands above the altar, and above him are the initials in Greek, Latin, and Hebrew of the offense for which he was condemned to death: Jesus the Nazarene, King of the Jews. The site of the crucifixion has been fixed since the time of Constantine, who erected a wooden cross at this site. Thirteenth station, Jesus is taken down from the cross. The reddish, flat stone of unction, with a row of oil lamps suspended above it, is said to be the place where the body of Jesus was anointed with oil and spices and prepared for burial in strips of linen, as was the Jewish burial custom at the time. Believers kneel next to the stone and kiss it. Some spill water on it and then absorb it with a cloth in order to take some of the holiness home with them. Many lay souvenirs that they bought in the market on the stone in the belief that the objects also will absorb the sanctity of the spot. Jesus died on a Friday, and according to the Jewish religion, the body must be buried before the Sabbath. It was decided to bury him in a rock-hewn tomb in a garden next to Golgotha that belonged to a secret follower, Joseph of Arimathea, a fresh tomb in which no burial had previously taken place. We now proceed to the rotunda of the church where the tomb of Jesus lies. 14th station, the tomb of Jesus. We are now at the core of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The tomb of Jesus is in the very center of the church, and on occasion there are long lines of pilgrims waiting for a visit of just a few minutes. The edicule, as the structure around the tomb is called, is made up of two small rooms. The first is the Chapel of the Angel, marking the place where, according to tradition, the women came 3 days after Jesus' death, only to find the tomb empty and an angel sitting on the rolling stone that usually sealed the tomb. The angel told them that Jesus had risen. The inner room is the tomb of Jesus itself. The marble-covered ledge is where the body would have once been laid. The rotunda is the enormous round hole surrounding the tomb, a Crusader structure built on the original church. If we look up, we can see the celestial designs that decorate the dome. These were completed in 1997 after the main denominations in the church agreed to renovate the dome. Sunlight comes through the upper windows in the afternoon, giving the hall a mysterious atmosphere. The most impressive event in the rotunda is the Holy Fire ceremony, which takes place yearly on the Saturday afternoon between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. Thousands of believers with unlit candles in their hands crowd into this place, and the Greek and Armenian patriarchs enter the tomb to receive the holy fire from heaven. They then transfer the fire to the believers, who rapidly spread it from candle to candle while the church bells ring. From there, the fire is taken to the church courtyard, onto the Eastern churches in the Old City, and then by special emissaries throughout the Christian Orthodox world. If you turn around, you will see the Katholikon, a Greek Orthodox sanctuary facing the Holy Sepulchre, with its balconies and ornamental iconostasis. The Greek Orthodox believe that the center of the world is located in the Katholikon, and a large urn on the floor marks the spot. Encircling the rotunda are the chapels belonging to other denominations. One can visit additional sites inside the church, such as the Chapel of St. Helena, or the Chapel of the Cross, at the bottom of the stairs leading out of the hall behind the Katholikon.